You thought it was just another heated moment on the court, just another flare-up between two competitive athletes in a charge game. But what happened between Brittney Griner and Caitlin Clark was a match that lit an absolute wildfire. And now, there's no putting it out. Because this isn't just about a basketball game anymore. Caitlin Clark, America's sweetheart, record-breaking phenom, the golden girl who practically saved the WNBA's rating single-handedly, got caught in the crosshairs of Brittney Griner. And Griner? She didn't just come for her with some elbows and court drama. No, she may have muttered a racial slur under her breath, and then went completely silent as the backlash rolled in. Silent as in not a peep, not a denial, not an apology, nothing. And you know what silence sounds like in 2025? Guilt, or worse, entitlement. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. Let's rewind this and start from the top. It started on a Tuesday night game that should have just been a showcase of talent. Clark versus Griner, old versus new. But things turned sour fast when Griner got a little too aggressive. Elbows were thrown, words were exchanged, and in the heat of all, cameras caught what looked like Griner mouthing something off-color, something racial. Naturally, social media did its thing. Within hours, clips were zoomed in, analyzed frame by frame, sound boosted, captioned, and dissected like a crime scene. Viewers swear they heard a slur. And yet, Griner said nothing. Not a clarification. Not even a canned PR response. Just silence, which in today's world is the equivalent of screaming, "Yeah, I said it. So what?" Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, she handled it with grace. Didn't take the bait. Didn't whine. Just kept playing. Because that's who she is. Unbothered and unbreakable. But then came the video. We were just getting started. While Twitter was roasting Griner for the racial insult, TikTok sleuths unearthed an old video of her shirtless. No scars, flat chest. Suddenly, the conversation shifted. Is Brittney Griner even biologically female? Conspiracy theories exploded. People pointed to court records and credible reports suggesting Griner was held in a men's prison during her detainment in Russia. Not a women's facility. A men's. Cue the chaos. The WNBA tried to stay quiet. ESPN fumbled around with puff pieces. But the questions kept coming. What exactly is the league hiding? And why does Brittney Griner seem to get a pass? Enter Riley Gaines. Riley's been here before. She's a face of fairness in women's sports. The Olympic swimmer who dared to question participation of biological males in female events. And she did not hold back this time. In a viral video that dropped like a bomb, Riley called out Griner, the WNBA, and the media industrial complex for what she described as blatant hypocrisy and identity-based double standards. Her words were sharp, her tone was icy, and her facts? Unignorable. She dragged the league for letting Caitlin Clark get targeted. Yes, targeted. While covering up for Griner's controversies, she exposed the racially charged backlash Clark has been getting, much of it from commentators and players who resent her spotlight. And Riley said the quiet part out loud. If this had been the other way around, if Clark had said something offensive, she'd be canceled by morning. But Griner? Protected, insulated, above it all. By now, the narrative had spun way beyond basketball. You had people on Reddit breaking down frame rates of Griner's leaked videos, Twitter Spaces hosting all-night debates about gender identity in pro sports, and fans demanding answers the WNBA refused to give. Meanwhile, mainstream outlets went full damage control. Suddenly, we were flooded with glowing Griner retrospectives, emotional montages, old clips of her dunking, tug-at-your-heart interviews about her time in Russia, all in a coordinated PR push to soften the story. But it didn't work, because real fans saw through it. The fact remains, Griner was part of a politically controversial prisoner swap. The U.S. government traded an actual arms dealer to get her home. You don't get that kind of deal without carrying some major symbolic weight. And now, after all that, she's back here throwing shade, possibly slurs, and refusing to answer questions? Yeah, people are angry. Let's not forget, women's sports are finally getting attention. Caitlin Clark brought in fans. She boosted ratings. She put the WNBA on the map for a whole new generation. And instead of rallying behind her, certain players have turned her into a punching bag. Why? Because she's good? Because she's popular? Or because she's white? The optics are not great. Riley Gaines was right to speak out, because someone needed to. This isn't just about Clark. It's about a league that's so desperate to be seen as progressive that it's ignoring its own blind spots. Racial tension, gender confusion, media bias, player entitlement. It's all bubbling over. And Griner? She's not helping. At the end of the day, this mess says more about the WNBA than any individual player. It's a league that claims to be about empowerment, fairness, and equality, but clearly struggles to apply those values consistently. Brittney Griner may have been a symbol of American diplomacy, but now she's a symbol of something else. How institutions twist themselves into knots trying to avoid controversy, only to create bigger ones. Her silence is deafening. Her past is messy. And her treatment compared to Caitlin Clark? It's not sitting right with fans. So here's the award of the week. Most suspicious silence goes to Brittney Griner. You could have cleared the air. Instead, you let the fog roll in. And to Riley Gaines, you get the most valuable whistleblower. You said what needed to be said when no one else would. Caitlin Clark doesn't need to speak for herself. Her game does the talking. But that doesn't mean the rest of the U.S. should stay quiet. Because if this is what progress looks like in women's sports, we've got a problem. Let's just say out loud, Caitlin Clark is too good, too clean, and too marketable for the WNBA to handle. And rather than celebrate her talent, elevate her game, and ride the wave of popularity she's brought to the league, some players have decided it's easier to tear her down. Enter Brittney Griner, who didn't just challenge Clark on the court. She made her the center of a full-on cultural takedown. Why? Because Clark represents the one thing the league wasn't prepared for. Someone outside the usual mold. She's white, she's young, she's wildly popular with mainstream America, and she's bringing in viewers by the millions. And that's apparently threatening to players who've been coasting on mediocrity and media protection for years. Instead of celebrating the fact that women's basketball is finally getting its moment in the spotlight, Griner and others treated Clark like an intruder, like she hadn't earned her spot. The hostility isn't just competition. It's jealousy, it's resentment, and it's absolutely sabotaging the league's future. Brittney Griner, from poster girl to PR nightmare. Once upon a time, Brittney Griner was the WNBA's poster girl. She was tall, dominant, and politically symbolic. Her detainment in Russia made her a martyr of sorts, wrapped up in global drama and State Department headlines. She became more than just a player. She was a story, a symbol, a cause. But symbols crack when the pedestal isn't built on truth. And now, that pedestal's crumbling faster than a dry cookie in a rainstorm. Griner's refusal to address the slur accusation speaks volumes. You don't have to be guilty to act like you are, but silence in the face of firestorm? It's a strategy only if you're okay with people assuming the worst. Add that to the physical aggression, the sneering, and the total lack of sportsmanship aimed at Clark, and suddenly Griner's not the hero anymore. She's a bully. And don't even get started on the body speculation drama. That should have never become part of the public conversation. But guess what? When you stay silent, when rumors swirl, when contradictory facts keep surfacing, you leave the door wide open for people to draw their own conclusions. Let's talk about what really grinds everyone's gears, the blatant hypocrisy. Caitlin Clark gets fouled half to death on live television, and the commentators yawn. But one tweet from a fan defending her? Suddenly that's divisive. Players make racially charged statements about her not being tough enough, or getting too much attention. And the league just lets it slide? Imagine if Clark had said a fraction of what's been said about her. The media would have crucified her in real time. Headlines would have exploded. Apologies would have been demanded. But when it's Brittney Griner, when it's other league veterans targeting a rising star, crickets. The message is loud and clear. Some players are untouchable no matter what they do, while others it fed to the wolves just for succeeding. Riley Gaines, the voice they couldn't silence. And then came Riley Gaines with the mic drop. In the middle of all this swirling chaos, She stepped in and said what no WNBA executive would dare say out loud. Enough is enough. Gaines in to support Clark. She called out the entire house of cards. She pointed straight at the racial bias, the gender confusion, the selective outrage, and said, "This isn't about equality. It's about control." And the backlash she got, that only proved her point. When you speak the truth in a room full of gaslighters, you're the one who gets burned. But Riley didn't back down. She doubled down, because she's been there. She knows what it's like to train your entire life only to compete against someone who has a biological advantage. She knows how it feels when the institutions that are supposed to protect women suddenly throw them under the bus in the name of progress. And now she sees it happening to Caitlin Clark live and in Technicolor. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The WNBA is in the middle of an identity crisis, and Caitlin Clark is the unwitting scapegoat. There's a cultural split happening in the league between players who want to elevate the game and players who are more interested in making political statements, playing the victim, and preserving their protected status. Griner is at the center of that second camp, and her treatment of Clark exposed just how toxic that divide has become. This isn't about one foul. This isn't about some random locker room rumors. This is about whether the WNBA is going to grow up and become a real league or stay stuck in its own ideological echo chamber while ratings flatline and fans bail. You don't get to preach empowerment while shaming your most successful player. You don't get to scream equality while playing favorites. You don't get to claim progress when you're silencing voices like Riley Gaines for telling the truth. People are watching, not just basketball fans. Everyone, the mainstream is tuning in because Caitlin Clark brought them there. But now, those same viewers are seeing a sport that seems more focused on cultural warfare than competition. They're watching a league implode from the inside because it can't figure out whether it wants to be a sport or a social experiment. And the sympathy for Griner? It's fading. Fast. Every new headline, every dodged question, every unaddressed rumor chips away at what little credibility she has left. And no amount of political backup, media spin, or PR coaching can save someone from the truth forever. What happens now? Caitlin Clark doesn't need the league's protection. Her talent is undeniable. But if the WNBA doesn't start protecting its rising stars and calling out its internal bullies, it's going to lose everything. Brittney Griner, she had her moment, but moments fade. And when your legacy starts to look more like a liability than a triumph, it might be time to stop speaking through silence and start answering the real questions. And to the WNBA leadership, do your job. Be fair. Be honest. Start treating this like the professional sport claims to be. Because if you keep playing politics instead of basketball, don't be surprised when your fan base walks. We see what's happening. We see the attacks, the gaslighting, the excuses, but we're not buying it. Caitlin Clark is the future of this league, and no amount of bitterness from the old guard can change that. So yeah, defend her. Speak out. Get loud. Because what's happening here, it's not just about basketball. It's about principle. It's about fairness. And it's about finally drawing a line between competitive heat and full-blown sabotage. You know what's truly backwards? The fact that Caitlin Clark walks into a league desperate for attention, sells out arenas, moves merchandise, makes people care about the WNBA for the first time in years, and instead of being welcomed with open arms, she gets body-checked like it's open season. And the most confusing part? It's not from rival fans. It's from her own colleagues. Fellow players who should be hyping her up as a game-changer she is are instead giving her death stares and cheap fouls. Like somehow her success is a betrayal instead of a blessing. Brittney Griner, instead of taking this as an opportunity to mentor or even just coexist with a new wave, chose the messy route. The eye rolls, the muttered slur, the silence, the bad energy. It's not just unprofessional, it's petty, and it reeks of insecurity. At this point, Brittney Griner's refusal to clarify, comment, or acknowledge the controversy swirling around her isn't just passive, it's pointed. She's not dodging the drama, because she's above it. She's avoiding accountability. Because let's be real, if this was Caitlin Clark being accused of something, anything, even a vaguely snarky post-game quote, she'd be put on blast. She'd be expected to apologize, explain, educate, do the work. But Griner? She's out here pretending none of it happened. It's a strategic silence, and it's not a good look. You can't claim to be a leader while dodging every tough moment. You can't carry the torch for social justice while ignoring valid criticism. You can't act like a champion while refusing to own your actions, especially when those actions include alleged racist remarks and visible hostility toward a fellow athlete. Here's the hard truth. Without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA would not be getting this kind of attention right now. She is the moment, the spike in viewership, the merch sales, the social media buzz. That's her. She's not riding a wave. She is the wave. And yet, it's like the league is ashamed of her. She's treated like a problem instead of solution. She's the elephant in the locker room. Wildly successful, universally admired, and low-key resented for it. Why? Because she's raising the bar. She's forcing everyone else to level up or be exposed. And Brittney Griner? She's been exposed. Griner is no longer the most dominant presence on the court. She's not the player bringing the fans in. And instead of rising to the challenge, she's lashing out. That on-court aggression, that bitter body language, that's not grit. That's a meltdown in slow motion. One of the biggest red flags in this whole saga is how little respect Clark gets from her peers. Let's be honest. The cheap shots, the smirks, the constant undermining, it's not just competitiveness. It's disrespect. And Griner is one of the biggest culprits. Instead of uplifting the sport, she's busy dragging it down with bitterness and bad behavior. There's a big difference between tough play and targeted hostility. And what Clark's deal with is clearly the latter. Meanwhile, Clark keeps her head down, keeps playing hard, and doesn't feed the drama. That's real professionalism. That's what leadership looks like. And frankly, that's what the WNBA should be rewarding, not punishing. You know things have gone off the rails when a swimmer has to step in and tell a basketball league how to handle its business. But Riley Gaines, she nailed it. She saw the double standard. She saw the racial dynamics, the identity confusion, the silence, and the lopsided protection, and she spoke up not to divide, not to stir up hate, but to call out the truth. And the truth is, Caitlin Clark deserves the same respect, the same protection, and the same platform as anyone else in the league. Period. Gaines isn't trying to make this about herself. She's standing up for fairness. She's backing the athletes who are being iced out of their own league just for being good. And if that makes her controversial, then maybe the problem isn't her. It's the system that's afraid of what she's saying. Let's not forget, Brittney Griner isn't just any player. She's the one the U.S. brought home in a prisoner swap. That's national-level stakes. She was handed a comeback moment most people could only dream of. And how has she handled it? With arrogance, with division, with silence. She could have used her story to uplift the league, mentor new stars, and bring people together. Instead, she's using her platform to ice out players like Clark and play the part of the misunderstood victim when things get messy. At some point, the golden shield wears thin. And right now, Griner's is cracked. The fans are watching, and they're not dumb. The fans see all of this. They see who's playing fair and who's playing dirty. They see who's promoting the game and who's poisoning it from within. And they're making decisions. People aren't tuning in to watch veterans pout and pick fights. They're showing up for athletes like Caitlin Clark, players who inspire, dominate, and represent the future. If the league doesn't start protecting its future, it's going to lose it. Because fans don't want drama. They want competition. They want greatness. And right now, greatness is wearing number 22. This isn't just about one game. It's not even about one player. It's about whether the WNBA wants to grow up and grow bigger or keep eating its own. Brittney Griner had her moment. Now it's time to let someone else shine. Caitlin Clark isn't just the future. She's the present. And it's time the league caught up. If you agree, drop a comment. Team Caitlin all the way. Let's keep holding these players accountable and demanding better from the league we want to love. And don't forget to subscribe, because you already know the next twist in this saga is just around the corner. Subscribe for more breakdowns, more drama, and way more hot takes. Because this saga, it's far from over.